This week, we got some new games from some of our favorite developers, including AEG, Cryptozoic, and Fantasy Flight.
Then we're going to talk about our topic of the week, campaign modes. What are the pros and cons of games that take place over more than one play session? My name is Jonathan Estes.
I'm Will Keeler, and this is the Roll for Crit podcast. We're going to start off with Fantasy Flight. We've got two new expansions for their two popular game, Eldritch Horror and Elder Sign. The first one, Eldritch Horror, is Mountains of Madness. Sorry, I was thinking their other game. I got so excited I expected more expansions. No, Mountains of Madness focuses on the Lovecraft story, Mountains of Madness, which takes place in Antarctica. So it's going to add a lot of new locations there, a lot of different things to do there, meet some of the lost explorers. You're probably going to find some of their old base camp. You're going to have to deal with the Elder things, which is really exciting because it's a big set. It's not small one like the last one. So, I mean, a nice big set for all about one story, a very important one from the Lovecraft lore.
Yeah.
The other one for Elder Signs is Streets of Arkham. And the entire set involves more actually around walking around Arkham and at streets, so you can explore there as well. New monsters, of course, new elder gods. Just a lot more to add to the game. This is its second expansion as well, if I recall correctly.
So they're doubling down on everything.
Well, they've realized Arkham has enough. I think it's time that they focus on their other properties.
And from the sounds of it, for Eldritch, which we've played a few times, we have a playback episode of it as well. Mm-hmm. It sounds like similar to the last expansion, where they're not going crazy, overwhelming you with new mechanics. It seems like mostly just more stuff to do.
Well, actually, I think one of the things they learned from Arkham Horror, which was people like being able to throw everything in, which is what they sort of did with the expansion for Arkham, in which they made cards actually interacted with in the expansions, which I love. It's sort of my favorite one just because of that.
Right.
But it's a pain to be hopping around 20 different boards. But, of course, people want to go to new places. So I think focusing just a little bit on Antarctica, it probably won't add too much hopping around, but you still get a lot of that feeling, especially they're focused on one of the biggest stories from Lovecraft lore. And I think that's a really nice of them to focus. It makes more of a connection, not just we're pulling from everything and making this expansion. No, we're literally focused on one story.
Yeah, it gives it more of a specific flavor as opposed to just, here's one aspect and we're just throwing in 40,000 things. You might be let's try our Antarctica thing this time, you know what I mean?
Right. I think this is really exciting. I think what it probably will bring is maybe some other small boards. I don't know whether this one has a separate board for Antarctica.
It sounded like it did.
But I don't know how big it is compared to
Right.
But maybe the other locations, I know the pyramid. I think it's the pyramids, Antarctica, somewhere in Russia, and the rainforest had special explorer marker tokens. And that when you went there on the regular Eldritch board, you drew a special card. Maybe those will have their own little boards now, so maybe you could explore the rainforest more.
Oh, that's a smart way to do it, because then it's it's seamless.
And it's still easy to get there. I remember that was the thing with Arkham Horror, there's one place to get to all those places. But really, you're still in Eldritch Horror, it wouldn't make that big of a difference.
Right, yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
We're looking forward to it.
Fingers crossed. I love all these Fantasy Flight Cthulhu games. So
Fantasy Flight is having a Arkham Knights thing later this month at their headquarters in Minnesota, where they have playing of all their Lovecraft games. They're going to be showing these off.
Okay, so they get through half a game.
Yeah, about half a game. It's a 4-day event, so we should hear more from that about that.
I wish we were closer.
Yeah, if only. Someday we'll move to Minnesota.
Then again, hearing how some people play.
Maybe we don't want to. Another game, we're going to go in the complete opposite direction from Eldritch Horror. Close. And that is Fluxx, the card game from Looney Labs. If you've never heard of it, it's a very simple card game in which the rules are constantly changing, hence the title. And depending on what cards are played, how you actually win changes all the time. So the current version of Fluxx is actually 4.0, believe it or not. And they've just announced that they are indeed working on Fluxx 5.0. So major changes to this one A bunch of the cards are going to get some reworkings, as well as creeper cards, which in the original game, if you got a creeper card, it was a negative effect you had to put in front of you, and you couldn't win normally if you had one. There are some exceptions.
Of course.
They're getting rid of those in 5th edition.
No more creepers?
No creepers in this.
What about the expansions then?
Expansions that should be mixable still, because I think you'll be able to. They'll probably reintroduce creepers later on with this version. I don't know. I assume they're all going to be compatible because there's so many versions of Fluxx. Why would they?
Since they just came out with the
cut off the
regular
market?
show.
Yeah, and Cartoon Network.
Yeah,
They're putting new ones out all the time. They even just announced also bonus news, the holiday version of Fluxx coming out this year. But yeah, I think the idea was supposedly to make it simpler for new players, but Fluxx is already a very simple game. I don't think it's necessarily was a needed removal.
Yeah, no, I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, maybe we'll play it and it'll be way better, but...
I mean, I can't really think of many changes that would add.
No, but, Fluxx is a pretty...
Remember, once again, whenever we're talking about games, the updates, this is 4.0 we're on.
I know. I don't even.
I mean, think about it. We're not seeing. Have you played the other?
I have no. I've never seen a Fluxx that wasn't. I think it's been. I think I was reading. It's been like over 5 years since 4.0 came out. So, whatever 1 through 3 were released at, I wasn't around.
In the first deck, it was almost all creepers.
Yeah. Originally, like it was just 2 cards. They just keep adding more and more. Anyway, that's if you're a fan of Fluxx, that's probably one you'll want to pick up. And again, holiday Fluxx. Later this year, if you like holidays, good for the holidays.
Well, as we know, this holiday for this month is all about evil spirits, and what better time to announce a game about evil than with Cryptozoic's DC Forever Evil. This is actually pretty much like the legendary villains, except with the DC game, in which you play as the villains and you fight the heroes. However, they're adding a new mechanic in which you gain victory tokens in addition from cards. So I'm guessing maybe there'll be a card that says if you buy 2 villains this turn or heroes, gain 2 victory tokens.
And that because normally you win based on the points
cards.
On the cards at the end of the game.
Interesting. I'm very curious to see what else they add. I definitely found that their other expansions have added a lot of interesting stuff. I'm curious to see how it balances out with each other. Of course, this is standalone, so you don't need the base or anything to play it. We'll see which. I don't think we even know what characters are officially
playable. No, we've seen the cover of the box.
And you can guess. I mean, it's almost certain that we're probably going to get Joker and
Lex Luthor. Although I was surprised Joker was not on the cover of the game. Thought that was weird.
I take that. I know a while ago they announced a special dual deck.
Right.
Which I don't think has even come out.
Right, which was just a 2-player
thing. It's just Batman and Joker.
So you think maybe they'll not do Joker because of that?
It's a little weird because they've already done Batman. So.
Yeah.
And I mean, Joker would be...
How could they not?
Yeah. I mean, I know you would probably want to be Joker, I'm guessing.
Probably. He'd probably have some fun...
That or Grundy.
Or Gorilla Grodd if he's in there. Yeah, I know there were a bunch more on the cover. You can check it out, but...
I am curious to see how they do the... because as you know in the deck, there's villains, which are the villains, and then heroes. Right. Will it be like allies and like will they switch those, or would it still be villains and heroes?
Yeah, I'm sure it's still going to be compatible with.
Yeah, but it could just be like if you know the Naruto game uses different words, but still the techniques are superpowers, equipment, allies are the heroes.
It's a smart.
Well, no, I mean obviously because. People want to play the villains.
People want to play the villains. And it's an easy way to also, because I think for a lot of not people who aren't as into the comics, they only know so many of the big characters. So once you have to delve into those more obscure heroes, I think it's easier to get a new audience because people know who Lex Luthor is, so they get that in as well.
But yeah, it'd be very curious to see how this goes.
Yeah, well, it's definitely one we'll be looking forward to since you have all the DC stuff already.
Currently, I believe yes, not the Lord of the Rings ones, but they don't technically
DC stuff. Yeah, but yeah,
they don't technically mix. I don't know why they did it. They didn't do it because it literally is the same system. It's just like Naruto. You just do different words. Right. I think it's just because at the time they wanted to make it because in the Lord of the Rings one you don't randomize the villains. You do a specific order. You go through the story.
Oh right.
But I mean, I have actually mixed the Lord of the Rings and the DC.
It's a little more thematic.
Yeah, I have mixed the two together. doesn't usually cause too many of issues. It's the same thing as like mixing Street Fighter or the Naruto one. But I mean, with the base one, I haven't tried out the other Lord of the Rings ones. But who knows?
Who knows? We'll find out when it's released. I think soon. I think by the end of the year. They said
December, I believe.
December.
If I recall correctly.
One more final thing for you to look forward to at the end of the year. AEG, Alderac Entertainment, publishers of lots of games like Love Letter, and they just put out Doomtown Reloaded. They have announced a couple of goodies for the end of the year. The first one is for Black Friday, and they're calling it the AEG Black Box. And it's a bit of a mystery because we don't know what's in it. Officially, it's, I think, going to have 4 games in it. And supposedly it's going to be possibly a mixture of alternate art versions of one of their older games, or maybe an expansion to a game or something like that. So they have a bunch of smaller games like Love Letter that they could put in there. So we'll have to find out what that is. Who knows if it'll be when that will happen. I don't know. I assume they're all going to have the same things in each of them, or maybe it's a grab bag thing. Maybe they're just trying to get rid of old inventory. I don't know.
Part of me now is like, you know you want it, but I was like, don't get it. Don't be smart. But it's very.
You gotta know what's in there.
What's in the box?
And the other thing, much less mysterious, they're putting out a holiday-themed version of Love Letter called Letters to Santa. So instead of writing a letter to the princess, you're writing letters to Santa. Otherwise, the gameplay is exactly the same. Love Letter is a fun, quick game. This would be a good stocking stuffer because it's cheap and small.
It actually makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Like compared to some of the other ones you've heard.
There's been some love letters where it's like that, you just pasted that on, but that makes sense. But unfortunately for us, both of these items are going to be available at brick and mortar retailers only. So you'll have to venture out into the wild to see if you can find them. I'm sure the black box at least will be limited edition. So it might be hard to find.
It depends how many they also allow brick and mortar stores to order.
Right.
And if it's anything like the what I've known with Magic doing their little special rare boxes, like let's say they buy it at $50, you may have to pay like twice that at least, depending on.
Yeah. Well, for the number of games in it, it might be worth it.
Well, and also depends what's actually in it. If it's random, if they're all the same, because if it's alternate art, especially if it's alternate art of Doomtown.
I don't think Doomtown's going in there.
If there's alternate art of Doomtown,
I don't think the box is big enough. I think we're talking about.
Well, no, even if it's just some promo cards.
Oh, it could be that.
Like if they put in just one Doomtown promo card, that will make that price of that box will shoot through the roof.
The new saddlebag, the first saddlebag for Doomtown comes out.
Oh, that would make people go crazy if they get an early chance of that. Yeah. I mean, just look at Smash Brothers, getting the code to the demo.
At the same time. But yeah,
people are buying that code, even though it's like a week away. They had to wait. Look at that saddlebag early.
We're speculating already. It's probably nothing that good, but you never
what if
know.
that was it? You literally open it, you get nothing.
Then I would probably be pretty sad. That's all. I'd just be pretty sad. That's all our news for this week. So lots of stuff is being announced. Lots of new stuff to look forward to.
Getting ready for the winter holidays.
Exactly, as well as
we've already mentioned and it's October. How could we?
I know it starts earlier every year.
All right, we gotta take down the decorations. Time to put up Christmas.
Anyway, it is time now for our Kickstarter Pickstarter.
My Kickstarter Pickstarter is Dead Drop. This is a spy game in which you have information, you're trying to trade cards and stuff in order to gain access to secret information. So it's sort of a give and take with other players. There's different cards with different agents, different values. What's really nice, one of the reasons I really like this, is to get the game, and the first stretch goal is $12. That's it. And then it's $22, so not that much more, still very cheap, to get all the stretch goals. Stretch goals, which include a cowboy deck, a birds deck, a robots deck, a kids deck.
Right, so it's a secret agent game,
but it has card versions for all of those if they hit those stretch goals.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's by Crash Games, who've done some other successful Kickstarters. So I'm really excited to see how this goes.
How does it work exactly? You have cards and you have to you can exchange them with people.
Yeah,
and then they give you or you can ask them questions and you're trying to find out what they have.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like you have to get this exact.
It sounded cool. Yeah. It sounded like it's like a not sort of social deduction, but a puzzly kind of a game.
And at a great price, it's definitely something to look.
Yeah, $12
to.
is nothing. I mean, that's.
And then even 22 is still cheaper. Of course, this is free shipping for United States. So I mean, that's pretty sweet, great deal compared to all the other games.
Right.
On Kickstarter right around now.
Mine then. Sorry, I had a little. Mine is called This House is Haunted. It is by Brain Punch Games, which is what just happened to my brain. It got punched. This game, what's really cool about it is you are a group of people. It's sort of a party game, and you're trying to banish the demons from your house. The twist is you use your actual physical house as the board, so to speak, for the game. So to do certain things, you'll have to go into different rooms of your house.
So I have to actually get up and move.
You actually have to get up and move.
Oh God.
Now I don't know how this is going to work for like people who live in a studio apartment. they just have to. They suffer with like less rooms or something. I'm not sure, but at any rate, I think right now when you're watching this, the full rules should be online. They are not at the time we're recording this, so I don't know fully how the game plays out. But I do know you can get cards to become possessed, so you could become a traitor. You could be like trapped in a room for a while. You could get a card that you have to walk in a stupid way, like it's a curse or something. It sounds really fun, and so the regular game is $33. But if you pay $50, they're making an expansion, which raises the player count from 8 to 12. So which is a big deal for a game like this that would make a great party game. I'm thinking of just jumping right in because I think it sounds really cool. And the art's cool.
For some reason in my head now, I sort of imagine like a pseudo Jumanji-like thing.
Yeah.
Like imagine just going like, all right, like Jonathan, your turn to draw. You draw. I got the collapsed room. All of a sudden the floor just opens up and just you fall down to the ground.
Exactly. That's what I hope it's going to be like. It's like when you were a kid and you pretended your house was haunted.
Now, I guess in studio apartment though, I guess you maybe section off your studio apartment.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Wait, and like, where are you? I'm in the bathroom. How can you tell? We wrote bathroom down here. No, I mean that's definitely gonna be something.
Maybe it does come with a board. You could make a board because I guess you don't have to be.
Yeah,
in
but I
different
mean,
rooms. But I think sometimes it does affect it because there's secrets and stuff.
Right, and that would be pretty cool. Walking around the house and being like, oh crap, and
right?
like you have to stay in here without the lights.
And you're supposed to use flashlights and turn the lights off, of course.
Yeah, but then you need someone. That's when someone walks in with not knowing you're playing the game, turns on all the lights, and you're like, oh shoot.
Or they don't know you're playing the game, and they'll just hear people pretending to be murdered and stuff, and demons. They call the cops. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you. You can check out our Kickstarter picks. The links are below. But before that, hope you keep watching because what's next?
I think it's now time for our topic of the week.
Our topic of the week for this week is campaign modes. In other words, I'll explain that for the layman. Most board games you see, or card games, take place in one session, usually around an hour or more, depending on the games. However, some games, particularly role-playing games, but more and more we're seeing that the case with non-role-playing games as well, where your stats and your progress that you made in the game actually carries over from one play session to the next. So something you do when you play one night will have an effect on what you do the next time you play. So sometimes there are more extreme examples of this, like Risk Legacy, or which we'll get into, or sometimes it's more of just you're following a storyline, like Dungeons and Dragons or like Mice and Mystics does. So I guess we want to talk about how do we feel about it.
Well, I guess so. Let's first think of the games that we've seen. And like you said, role playing games are obvious one.
Right.
I mean, they literally
that's pretty much the bread and butter of role playing.
But
I guess it's more interesting to talk about it in terms of the other way around.
I think when we see it in like I think Legacy, Risk Legacy, and coming soon, Pandemic Legacy.
Well, I think we could start there because the Legacy games are almost like a totally different category. Even because most campaign games, like if you're talking about Mice and Mystics or Descent, is a big one. The boards change from time to time. Like your character might get upgrades and stuff like that, but it's essentially almost like just a totally new scenario. Whereas Risk Legacy is like stuff actually is changed permanently on the board itself.
Well, I think I have an issue with this because it happened. It's happening to us in one of them.
It's happening to us.
I don't know about Risk Legacy because every time we have it, we don't have the right people
We've
or
been
too
trying.
many. We've been trying very hard.
That's another. We'll talk about that in our.
That's the first one. Actually, let's talk about that now.
Section.
You always need the same people, really, for a lot of them.
Typically. And I guess we touched on this in our Dungeons and Dragons playback episode, but we'll touch on it again.
Well, no, even because Dungeons and Dragons, I think isn't there a way you could usually substitute someone?
With a role-playing game, you can have people coming in and out. With most of these types of games,
you can't.
It's really about, you could, but it's not really the same.
Yeah.
Especially something like Risk Legacy, where it's really, you're having an impact on what happens and everything. Plus, it's also kind of like, you don't want someone to leave that week and they miss something crazy could happen if someone else subs in for them.
For me, the thing that I have a problem, which I was starting with, and I realized this one was a better one to start off with, but some of these games can run rampant when one person wins early on and gets that lead. We were playing Descent. Jonathan, myself, and Ivan are the heroes.
Yeah, the heroes.
We have not won any full story. I mean, we've won like half of one.
Right. Each section of the campaign has 2 acts. So that someone wins the first half and the second half.
I don't know whether we're just really bad at it, but I mean...
Well, we should say we're playing against our friend Garrett, who you might have seen in a couple of videos, who is a particularly cruel overlord, and he controls all the monsters and everything. Yeah, and because... based on who wins, that's how they decide who gets the best experience and stuff like that. Just like an RPG, a video game, or non-video game. Right, and like as you're saying, so it's sort of a snowball effect where he keeps getting better stuff and we keep struggling. I mean, I have to give them the benefit of the doubt and think that there must be a catch-up mechanic in there somewhere where it's not, they wouldn't make it impossible.
I'm just saying. I mean, I just use that as an example, but really, it's just something that's fair. It's something you really got to be careful of when making these games or playing them. I mean, you can do house rules, but really, and it also depends. I mean, Descent, there were some scenarios we look at balls and there's like 10 different, Right, errata is the whole erratas. That's another thing. But like, I know with Legacy, it'd be one of those things. I don't know what works because we don't open the packets because we're not going to open those early.
Right.
But I don't know if it's going to happen like if I always start in, let's say I always start in South America. I don't know where we initially start is where we're always going to start. And maybe because I win the first game, I get to put a fort somewhere and I can put it on somewhere that makes it nearly impossible for you to invade me.
I suppose.
So I don't know. Like that's the kind of danger.
Right.
I mean, this is just my fear because after seeing it happen in other things, but
well, that could be the solution to that, or one solution to that could be, since they're coming out with Pandemic Legacy, which will be a mode of that, of course that's a cooperative game. So maybe less about one person gaining a lead and more about just the environment changing over time.
But at the same time, I know saying how I don't like that. You want to make the choices seem like something.
Right, you don't want someone to get ahead, but you also don't want it so everyone's always equal. Yeah,
right. I mean,
you want to feel, if you're the one who wins, you want to get a bonus.
Yeah, you want the win, and it's a unbelievably hard balance to do.
Yeah, it's tough.
But going with the pros, it's really cool to know that it's like playing Fallout, any of those video games where you make choices and they last throughout the game. Mm-hmm. That's really cool. And I think, and that's why I'm excited to still do Risk Legacy. Because I want to see whether, because we bombed one country, whether that country doesn't exist anymore. Which actually I think is going to happen with Pandemic Legacy. I think countries are going to be like, you killed off this country. You did not save. What's the country we always?
Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires.
City, whatever it is.
We never save them.
Yeah. Sorry, South America. Yeah, they're going to be doomed. But at least I won't have to worry about them anymore, right? Yeah, that would be great if at the end of the campaign, it's just like, you failed the world. Everyone is dead. Yeah, that should be great. But yeah, it's much more, because you're going through a story together, and you feel, like even just a non-campaign game can have that kind of effect, so when it takes place longer, it's even better.
Well, I think that's why I'm more excited for Legacy games compared to Descent. When Descent is one person, an evil guy getting it, but with the other two, it's the environment changing, and I think that's cooler.
Yeah.
Because that's actually seeing the world change. I think a cool one would maybe, I don't know how you do it, but maybe something that involved evolution. Because then you literally maybe everyone's playing as something, and you literally see animals evolve and progress.
It's like Spore, the game. You start as a cell. Yeah.
But I think that would be a pretty cool another legacy game sort of that would work.
Then also like in the case of Mice and Mystics, it's more of you're just following a storyline.
Yeah. Well, that's still like the cooperative one, I think.
Yeah.
But once again, that's more of a story in your characters stick through, not the environment.
You don't necessarily have an impact on the way things play out, at least not on a big scale.
Yeah. And that's what I'm more excited when the environment changes, even though that could probably be harder to balance and stuff.
Yeah.
Just because that just seems more interesting. Like you're really changing the battlefield, whatever you are fighting or playing on.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I always think is really cool, and I love when games do it. But again, it is that at the same time I'm just afraid because I know we're not going to be able to do it as much as I want.
I do think one of the things that would help these kind of games is the invention of, like we said with XCOM, with apps. Imagine you could upload onto the app, so you put like, okay, we played like this, and it loads in, and it's like, okay, set up the game like this now. The next time you play.
Right, it would handle all the.
So like it handled that, it handled the bookkeeping. You didn't know how to just put 1 or 2 stickers down. Those stickers are always fun, love. But like it could be like, all right, so let's use once again like Risk War Game as an example. I'll keep going that. All right, so last game someone invaded Europe from this country, so for now. And they built a blockade or something, so it's hard to invade from this country now, but you can like...
Yeah, alternate routes and things, yeah. What was I going to say? I was going to say something else, but I'll skip to my other thing I was going to say. If you can't do a campaign, I think another sort of in the same vein, but not quite as... it doesn't change as much, is just doing mission modes. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, Space Alert, where you have missions, and each one will get progressively harder. So maybe you're not actually, nothing you do is really carrying over or making an impact, but it still gives you that feeling like you're progressing. And that's, I think, at the heart of what makes it so engaging.
I was just thinking what might be, which I haven't seen yet, which would be a cool sort of pseudo-legacy. This goes more with the story. Mm-hmm. But what if it was like a deck building? But like it wasn't that you built your deck then, or maybe like basic cards, but like
your deck carries over.
Your deck would carry over or something. So like maybe like if you beat this monster, you get these like these stronger cards you hold in, like
that
equipment.
Is sort of
except
like
it's more of a deck building, and you'd keep a deck list or something.
Descent sort of does do that.
Yeah, it's like that, but to more of an extreme based on the cards.
Right.
That's what that would be an interest. And once again, the app would help with that because then you could be like just throw this card in, this card in.
And that's something that I haven't seen before. Yeah, there's a lot of, it's something that definitely takes more time to plan out, unfortunately. So I don't think we're going to see a ton of them, but there's a lot of different varieties we could see, because right now it's like it is mostly these dungeon crawly type games. So hopefully, like Risk Legacy and that takes off. Honestly, I'm surprised it hasn't taken off more.
You can't forget the new Star Wars one. I mean, it is dungeon, but I mean, it's Star Wars.
Right,
So.
Imperial Assault, which is basically Descent.
Which is going to be interesting whether there's going to be like the blaster cannon of healing. And like, so you shoot yourself in the knee and you're healed.
Hey, there is mysticism in Star Wars. You can force
Yeah, I know.
Well,
so is everyone a Jedi then?
No, you're not, but maybe there are some Jedis. You're rebels. Anyway, we're pro, despite the difficulties in getting them, it's worth it when you can pull it off.
Oh yeah, no, well, it's easy to screw up, but if you do it right,
it's really cool.
It is one of the coolest things you can do.
Let us know what you think. If there's a game we didn't mention that you really enjoy, or of course role-playing games we didn't really get into, but
maybe there are some catch-up methods maybe we're just really, really terrible at this, and you want to tell us how we're terrible.
Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah, we've done that with Cyclades.
Drop us a comment below on YouTube or send us an email. Our address is rollforcrit@gmail.com.
And of course, there's our Twitter @rollforcrit, including our personal Twitters @Dorikiryu,
@Quence, and at Ivan R. Hahn.
And of course, at Foamy89 for our resident artist.
And if you liked any of the games, like the sound of any of the games we talked about today, you want to check out Elder Sign, Eldritch Horror, DC Comics before the expansions are released.
Get caught up on them because they are fun games by themselves.
They are fun games by themselves, and you can buy them all right here on our website, which is rollforcrit.com.
And of course, we may have only shown 2 Kickstarters, but we've got plenty of more articles, both Kickstarters and other news sections on our site, which is pretty good to check out.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
And of course, we should also mention this site is rollforcrit.com, and we also have an Instagram and a Vine now.
And one more thing before we go. Of course, if you couldn't tell, it's the month of Halloween. So if you haven't seen already, our playback episode for Betrayal at House on the Hill went up last week, and we're going to have new episodes based on Halloween games every week this month. Our next one will probably be Zombie 15, so keep an eye out.
So that's it for this week.
That is it.
So you can go back to playing Smash Brothers now.
They probably were playing while we were talking.
Well, I'm Will Keeler.
I'm Jonathan Estes, and this has been the Roll for Crit podcast.